Hey there everybody, happy Monday. It's me, Caitlin, your geeky girlfriend, and in today's video we're going to be doing another Bookie Babe book review series, or Bookie Babe book review for my Bookie Babe book review series. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for being a member of my little online corner of the internet. I really appreciate each and every one of you. And tonight's video is actually a book number 8 for the year. So as of this moment, I am 25%, or no, 30% of my 33-ish percent, whatever percent that is, 8 out of 24, 1 out of 3, 1/3 of the way through my goal for the year, which is so exciting. And I'm actually almost done with book number 9. It is really good, so I can't wait to tell you guys about that one too. But before we get into it, thank you all so much for being here. And as always, if you're new here, you can hit that red button and subscribe, or give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and you can comment if you've read this book down in the comments. And the book tonight that we're going to be talking about is Sister of the Bride, written by Beverly Cleary. Fun fact, I did an autobiography of Beverly Cleary when I was in 5th grade, so we had to pick some sort of famous celebrity, somebody who influenced us, and I chose Beverly Cleary because as a kid, I distinctly remember reading a lot of her books in 4th and 5th grade, particularly The Mouse and the Motorcycle I read really young. I think I read The Mouse and the Motorcycle when I was like a 2nd grade, and it still is one of my favorite books of all time. The mouse's name was Ralph. That's very sentimental to me because my grandfather's name was Ralph. And then I read like all of the Ramona series. I read Henry Huggins. I read Mittens. Socks. I read Ramona the Brave, Runaway Beezus, all of those. I read like the whole Ramona and Beezus series, and a couple of her other, the one-offs too. And it was interesting when I opened up this book. It was interesting to see all of the works that were done by Beverly Cleary and how many I had actually read. And Beverly Cleary has actually, she did a whole series called the First Love series. She did featuring Ramona Quimby, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those, which I'm pretty sure I've read all of those. Featuring Henry Huggins, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those. 6 of those. And then she wrote 2 autobiographies, and she wrote a whole other series, Otis Spofford. I definitely read Otis Spofford, Emily's Runaway Imagination, Socks, Dear Mr. Henshaw, read that one, Muggy Maggie. So she read like a whole other series of one-off books. And then featuring Ralph Mouse, there were actually 3 of those books. I only ever read the first 2, admittedly, but needless to say, Beverly Cleary is like a staple of young adult literature. She has written so many books, and I think she's written a lot more than people realize. This series is one of them. So this is part of the First Love series. Now, all of the books are standalone books, and this is one of a 3-part collection. 15, Sister of the Bride, Jess and Johnny and the Luckiest Girl, or Jean and Johnny and the Luckiest Girl. So, excuse me, there are 4 in this little First Love collection, and these don't have, they're all just one-off little stories. And what I did not realize when I started the book, that I probably should have, is that this book is actually written and set in 1963. That is the copyright of this book. This is not the original cover of this book. And I did find this book at, Ollie's or something like that. It was in a clearance bin. I picked it up because it was Beverly Cleary. And, I mean, it was in good condition, but I bought it new. It was new, but at a discounted price. Probably just because it's old, But this book was actually written and set in the 60s. So, when I picked it up, I didn't know that. And I knew that Beverly Cleary's stuff was older, and was designed for younger readers. I knew that. I knew that going in. But I think I was expecting 70s, 80s. I wasn't quite ready for the early 60s. And so there were just a lot of things in the book that really shocked me. And I had to after I started reading, I had to go back and check the copyright stuff because I was like, when was this book actually written? Because they were talking about for example, this book, Barbara is the main character, and her sister, Rosemary, is like in college. She's a freshman in college, and she comes home from college and decides that she's getting married. And Rosemary is 18, Barbara is 16, and so they are in a frenzy trying to plan the wedding. So it kind of has like a 80s 90s rom-com feel to it, and especially if you like a good wedding story, this one is kind of funny, but it doesn't talk so much about the wedding. It's more of Barbara's perspective, and like, oh, well, I would think Rosemary would want this type of dress, and she has to think about me because I'm gonna end up wearing her hand-me-down. And it's just funny to hear or think through the perspective of a younger sibling. I'm the oldest, so I don't have that same perspective, obviously. And it was just kind of funny. Also, just to hear and think about the perspective of a teenage girl who's now like, oh, I'm going to a wedding, and I don't have anybody going with me. So, like, is there going to be an usher that I can dance with? Or is there going to be a groomsman that I can kiss? And, like, she kind of has her own love story thing going on. So there's kind of, like, two conflicting plots. And then you've got, like, the middle, like, the dynamics between her parents, the dynamics between her and her brother, like, all of it is just kind of wound up into this young adult perspective story that's set kind of in a haphazard, last-minute kind of sort of elopement, and just her kind of dealing with all of that. Overall, it being set in the 60s didn't really bother me. It was just kind of funny to hear them talk about, like, taffeta gowns and organza and all this stuff when referring to, like, trends for weddings. And Rosemary wanted to wear a suit at one point, and I was like, ooh, that's not so much a thing anymore. I think it might be coming back a little bit, but definitely not, like, the popular thing. So it was just, like, there were some just funny things like that. Talking about, like, groceries. They talked about the price of groceries at one point and how, like, a can of pork and beans was, like, 19 cents or something, and I'm like, what time period are we living in this book? But it was a very cute story. The cover says, like, will Barbara have a date for the wedding? And I felt like that issue was not really resolved. When it comes time for the wedding, like, it's not really clear who she is going to the wedding with, if she's going with anybody at all. And that's not really made clear. So this whole time I'm like, waiting for Barbara to kind of get into a relationship, and she never really does. So I was a little bit let down. It was a quick read because it's very easy, it's very light, but it was overall pretty boring, pretty mundane, and that could just be me phasing out of young adult fiction, especially, like, the young adult romance stuff. I think when it comes to romance, I mean, I am, like, going to be 29 this year, so it makes sense that my shifts or my likes and genre preferences when it comes to reading are just shifting a little bit. But it kind of makes me sad because young adult romance were, like, my thing for a really long time, and this one is just, I've said this about a lot, but it's just a very solid okay. Like, it gets that very solid okay rating from me, so, like, that 2-star. If I was younger, I might have enjoyed it more. I would have preferred it to be a little bit more fluffy and not just this. It's very, like, matter of fact. This is how it was. I wanted it to be a little bit more fluffy, even a little bit more comical or something, just to give it a little bit extra oomph. So I gave it a 2-star on Goodreads, which means that out of a 10, I would give it like a 4. I might go like 4.5 out of 10, but that's only because it's Beverly Cleary, and I just have a fondness for her. Out of all of the other works that I have read by her, this one definitely falls kind of to the bottom of the pile. I still have some of her works, like her Ramona works and The Mouse and the Motorcycle. Like, I still have some of her books saved for my own future children to read and for our bookshelves at home because I just, like I said, I have such a fondness for her work. And I did write a biography about her in 5th grade. So I, like, went through a very big Beverly Cleary phase where that was, like, all I was reading. And when I was in 4th and 5th grade, thinking about, like, the accelerated reader program and all those things. Like, if you were a kid growing up in the 90s, or the early 2000s, you know exactly what I'm talking about. For those of you who are younger than this, we used to have a program at our school. It was called Accelerated Reader, and I actually still used it for my intervention kids because it's a great way to incentivize reading and kind of get them motivated to read a little bit more, but also make them feel comfortable and, like, reading for comprehension. So Accelerated Reader, you would pick books off your library shelf. They would all have, like, a code on them. Like, it would say, like, 4.6, and then it would have, 0.25 or 1 point. Like, this book probably would have been worth 1 point because of the length of it. And then you would go and you would, like, look it up on Accelerated Reader, and then you would take a little 10-point quiz. And if you got the questions right, then you got points. And we would earn prizes and pizza parties and all this stuff for meeting our goals in Accelerated Reader. I think as a 7th grader, my goal for Accelerated Reader was like 95 points or 100 points or something by the end, by the end of the quarter. It was because when you read a lot, and so every class, every English class would have like silent reading time, so everybody could work, and then you could go and take quizzes. It was a whole thing. If you are a Gen X, or not Gen X, Gen Zer or the Alpha, you need to look this up because it was like, I'm telling you. We also had accelerated math too. That was a whole different thing. This video is really going off on a tangent here, but what my point was that these books, Beverly Cleary's books, were essential for Accelerated Reader. Almost all of them were included in the Accelerated Reader program, and you could get 1.5 to 2 points for each one, and usually I could read them in like 2 to 3 class periods. And so it was easy points. They were great. They were great stories for 4th and 5th graders to read because the stories kind of follow 4th and 5th graders. Now, this collection, the First Love collection, the characters are a little bit older, so like I could have read these in college and probably enjoyed them, but right now it just fell a little flat. It was just a little boring. I just wanted a little bit more. And like I said, that could just be my taste as a reader kind of maturing a little bit, which is not a bad thing. And like I said, I just have a fondness for Beverly Cleary. So that's why I chose to read this one. I just wanted something kind of palate cleansing after book number 7, which you can check out that review if you scroll up and go check out number 7. It was actually a nonfiction book, and it just was almost a DNF. And so I just wanted something like very light and fluffy. This one wasn't, like I said, it wasn't as fluffy as I wanted it to be, but it was all right. Very solid, okay. A 2-star. That's it for this video. I have rambled on way too long in this video, so I really need to get off of here and go finish book number 9. So until then, I will see you guys next time.